Teen Titans is a show that started with 5 main heroes: Robin, Cyborg, Beast Boy, Starfire, and Raven. But over the course of 5 seasons, and especially in that 5th and final season, the team had grown to include the Titans East and an international allegiance of Honorary Titans. So I recently rewatched the series and the Trouble in Tokyo movie with 2 big questions in mind. Who is the strongest Teen Titan? And who is the strongest Teen Titans villain? Today we're going to answer that first question. Who is the strongest Teen Titan? To keep things simple and focused, I decided not to count games, any Teen Titans Go material, and any of the comic books, including the comic book run that was made in conjunction with the original series. This also is not a ranking of which character I like most from the show or who I would want to win. Lastly, I'm only looking at official Titans for this list, so I won't be throwing in the Doom Patrol or Sarasim or sometimes heroes like Red X or Gizmo or Valyor, or Larry. Thank your lucky stars, there's no Larry. I'm also not including Silky, because he's too strong. He'd win the whole tournament, and I don't know, I just don't think it's fair to the other characters to stack them up against a celestial being of that magnitude. That leaves 3 main categories for us to look at: the Honorary Titans, the Titans East, and the Core 5, plus 1. First up, from the weakest to the strongest, it is the Honorary Titans.
What's wrong with that one?
I don't know.
Timmy Tantrum is one of 3 children that Raven is tasked with babysitting and escorting to safety. And of those 3, he is easily the biggest crybaby. His superpower is that he can emit a sonic scream, but it doesn't really do a whole lot, and seems to be something he can only use under rare or extreme circumstances. For comparison, the villain Punk Rocket similarly uses harsh sounds and sonic power, but he can do it all the time, and he can also fly on his magical guitar. Timmy Tantrum doesn't even have a guitar. Like, come on. Teether is another one of the toddler trio, but I've got a bit more faith in his ability to chew through metal and spit it out like a machine gun flurry. Teether is a literal baby, but unlike Jack, I don't think his attacks would be much more than a minor nuisance to most of the series' villains. And to put it bluntly, Teether probably has only a single point of HP, and is at any given moment only 1 punt away from total defeat. Maybe I'm underestimating Tramm the Fish Boy by putting him the 3rd lowest in this category, but Tramm's only victory in the show is against XL Terrestrial, who literally no one has heard of and no one cares about, and even that fight's conclusion happened off-screen. Tramm is introduced first as simply a tech-savvy friend of Aqualad, but later he gets handed his own communicator, and it turns out that he can get swole. Tramm is definitely stronger than your average fish boy, whatever that means, but he still loses in the next round to Trident and Plasmus, even with Aqualad on his side.
Kilowatt!
Kilowatt might be the most obscure hero on this list, because I am struggling to remember if his name is ever even said out loud at any given point. And like said unsaid name might suggest, Kilowatt has voltage powers. He draws energy from the electricity around him, which at one point even allows him to straight up absorb overload. While he does extinguish every one of Control Freak's TV monsters in a single hit, I'm thinking that exclusively has to do with them being made out of electricity too, not because Kilowatt is secretly god tier and OP. This is further illustrated when Kilowatt is himself taken out in 1 hit by the Puppet King. Bushido is an expert swordsman who can smoothly dodge attacks, block sword strikes, and even catch shurikens with his blade. Then that guy who couldn't make it up the Master's Mountain shows up and solos Bushido. Keep in mind, Robin had previously beat Kitaro pretty easily at the end of the quest, so Bushido's loss here does not instill much faith, and it's not like we see much more of him later to boost him back up in the rankings.
Sort of clashes with my outfit. It's come in black.
Yet another brushed by Honorary Titan, who would probably be just as obscure if not for her memorable design and accent, is Argent, the goth girl whose energy-shaping powers feel very Green Lantern-y, except that her power is red, of course. And before you can say, hurry up with the damn repairs, she's already taken flight and taking names with her giant red fist. Against General Immortus and his soldiers, however, she is overwhelmed and captured. But, at the very least, she got the dignity of losing to a proper supervillain.
What's that Oh.
Wildebeest first shows up in the Tournament of Heroes, where he's introduced as a 400-pound, car-throwing force of supernature. He is scheduled to fight Beast Boy, and he holds his own pretty well against Beast Boy's Green Gorilla, Green Gator, Green Grizzly, and Green Golion. Wildebeest is so strong that he could lift and roll Elephant Beast Boy. The fact that he actually beat a Core 5 member of the Titans in a one-on-one match already sets Wildebeest apart from the previously mentioned Honorary Titans. Then, in his next match, Wildebeest's bracelets and body armor are effective at expelling Speedy's arrows. He also deftly dodges Robin's ranged attacks. But it turns out he can be grabbed by the horns and derailed, and he loses in the tournament after being knocked out in only one hit from Speedy's punching glove arrow. When we see him again in Season 5, he's being chased to a cliff by Madame Rouge, who puts the beast in cold storage.
May we have fun here, brother?
Of course! We are Thunder and Lightning!
While initially presented as a package deal, Thunder and Lightning are shown to fight individually, so I'm ranking them as though they are individual fighters. I'm also giving them the same rank though, because I don't think that one is stronger or weaker than the other. Thunder and Lightning are bona fide masters of booming sound and dancing electricity, respectively, but while they may be gods, they're also a bit naive, and they're often more interested in playing than fighting. In his bare form, Beast Boy could knock over Thunder, who'd go on in Season 5 to lose against the C-tier villains Steamroller and INSTIGATOR. Lightning, not to be outdone, loses in a battle of electrical prowess to Overload. A case could be made that, since Kilowatt absorbed Overload, Kilowatt should be ranked higher than Lightning. But Kilowatt also lost to Creepypasta Pinocchio, so pardon me for putting the brakes on that parade.
Gnark!
Yes, Cole and Gnark are two individual people, each eligible for their own social security numbers and state-issued driver permits, but they were always shown fighting together. And I can't even really imagine what it would look like if they were fighting apart. There's no way that'd be effective. It's kind of like Mossy Manos. You'd never separate them for an extended period, right? Right? So Cole's power is that she can turn into an energy-reflecting, potentially indestructible crystal. Dinosaurs can't bite through it. And it's so durable that she tells Starfire that she couldn't hurt her even if she tried. But Cole, on her own, lacks a win condition. With her limited mobility, she doesn't really have many ways to attack, and that's where Gnark comes in. Gnark is a bulky cave boy that swings on vines and can also swing Cole like a club or a sword with a surprisingly sharp edge. Gnark also has an advantage in jungle environments. But because he had a bad experience with the modern world, he's terrified of modern technology, which immediately is a problem when so many of the Teen Titans villains use advanced technology. Gnark is also ruled by his emotions, like when he gets angry over Cyborg beating him at a simple eating contest, and then he just decides to carelessly run off alone in the woods, despite the clear warnings that there was a villain on the loose. Cole and Gnark then go on to lose rather easily to Dr. Light. But then, somehow, later on, they actually beat Gizmo and Billy Numerous. And I tend to think of Billy Numerous as actually a real threat. So you could say that maybe I'm underrating Cole and Gnark. But if I were evil, which I'm not, I still think I'd be more afraid of the other Titans coming up in this list.
You fight like a boy.
Jinx spends most of the series as a villain, the de facto leader of the High Five. But she also gets recruited by Kid Flash near the end of the show, so here she is. Jinx's powers relate to bad luck and hexes. she can cause bad luck to occur in the environment, which can result in a mild catastrophe, like pipes bursting from the walls, up to something much bigger, like the whole roof caving down on someone. A single Hex Blast from Jinx can KO guards and push Raven back, and Jinx is also very acrobatic and fast. She dodges Starfire's starbolts with ease and nimbly jumps from platform to platform during training exercises. Despite her role as a leader of the High Five, she isn't necessarily the best tactician. She's outsmarted by Beast Boy, of all people, who tricks her into collapsing the environment on herself. And I'm also never quite sure, when I'm watching the show, how far her powers extend. Bad luck is a really nebulous concept for a superpower, and it's never really expressed in the show as anything close to what fellow Hot Topic shopper Raven is capable of. At first, he might appear as a peaceful, unassuming flower child, but it is unwise to underestimate Jericho. His main power is body possession, which gives him total control over a victim's body, whether it's to use Cinderblock for a stealth mission, make Private Hive keep hitting himself, or, ironically, control Control Freak. He's strong enough to defeat both Fang and Private Hive off-screen, but the exact limit of his abilities depends on how quickly he can control his opponents, so they don't get the chance to take him out first. I would suspect that enemies with stronger mental fortitude might be able to completely resist being possessed. I'm thinking of resistant minds like Brother Blood, or Jericho's comic book father, Slade. And it's also not clear that Jericho has any other powers, so if you do get the jump on him or cover his eyes, he doesn't stand a chance. That said, Jericho's power is so strong that when it works, it nullifies solo fights, and it allows Jericho to pit his enemies against each other as he hops from host to host.
Those guys got wildebeest? Where are they? I'll go after them myself!
I hardly know anything about Pantha. Like a few other Honorary Titans, she's only in a couple of episodes, and it doesn't seem like there's all that much to her character beyond the concept of strong wrestler. But Pantha is so strong. She's shown to be lifting and overpowering big dudes, going so far as to use one man's body to beat another man's body over and over and over again. She can throw and spin Cyborg, take out Mammoth in like one hit, and is victorious over everyone's favorite Teen Titans villain, Wrestling Star. Pantha defeats two villains specifically known for having incredible strength, Atlas and Adonis. Each on their own was formidable to Cyborg and the other Titans, but Pantha beats them both in the same ring at the same time. In the big battle near the end of Season 5, it's implied that Pantha defeated Warp as well as Seymour, before getting knocked down by INSTIGATOR, and then steamrolled by Steamroller. Given her record so far, I'm convinced that Pantha would beat either of those two in a full fight, possibly even beat both of them together in the same ring, like she did with Atlas and Adonis. It's not even a stretch to ask if Pantha might be physically the strongest Titan. Period. But because we don't really see her with any other powers, and we don't have any reason to assume she has some advanced tactical abilities, Pantha still feels limited. Being able to lift big dudes and suplex them will get you far in life, but it's not going to be enough for me to call you the strongest Teen Titan.
Why don't you pick on someone your own size? Bobby, get him!
Melvin is the third child that Raven was tasked with protecting. She's the oldest, and generally the most chill, even at one point giving Raven some babysitting advice. But Melvin's real power lies in her friendship with her imaginary friend made manifest, Bobby the Bear. Bobby is shown to be strong enough to overpower Monsieur Mala and punch him straight through a train car with enough force that it disconnected. Bobby may or may not be physically stronger than Pantha, but he does have a few things that set him apart and, in my opinion, above. First, it seems that Bobby has some kind of intuition or sixth sense for detecting danger. Bobby can feel that something is off nearby, even when Raven can't. And sure enough, Monsieur Mala was just around the corner. Bobby can also disappear from view whenever he wants to, which effectively turns Bobby into a giant invisible wrecking ball. Bobby was around Raven their entire journey, invisible almost the entire time, so not only does this mean that he can keep his power up maybe indefinitely and always be invisible, but he's also so silent and undetectable that even someone as magically tuned as Raven couldn't tell that like a 7-foot teddy bear was just there the whole time.
You expect me to cross an oil field? I'll light the whole place up.
Hotspot lands himself a hot spot on this ranking because he has versatile flame attacks and an indomitable endurance. Hotspot mostly attacks with ranged fireballs from a distance. He could spout flames from his hands to prevent himself from falling or to propel him forward as a form of flight. While Hotspot does lose to Robin in the Tournament of Heroes, and later to Madame Rouge in an extended fight, the fact that he could hold his own at all with those two strong opponents, two of the strongest characters in the whole series, I think says a lot. Hotspot's standard fireball is hot enough to make a vase go scorching hot, without melting or exploding. But when more firepower is required, Hotspot can generate huge flames that act like bombs he can launch at his foes. Note that he can be tricked, like when Madame Rouge gets him to power down. And I have no doubt that some of the other Honorary Titans are stronger than him, like Wildebeest and Panther and Bobby. But the thing with them is, for all their muscle, I'm pretty sure they can all be burned and lit on fire.
My horn opens rifts in space.
Now that we're in the top 3 of the Titans Honorary, the clear winner gets a bit harder to determine. And each of these next guys is, in my opinion, OP. Sometimes seeing less from a Titan can actually benefit them in the ranking, as is the case with Herald. Since I can only go off of what we see, and what we see is very impressive, Herald manages to be at the top despite barely showing up in the series, and probably not being a character that most fans will even remember. Herald is a mysterious Titan that uses a horn to create rifts in space. These allow him and others to fast travel almost instantly across vast distances, but the portals are also his main method of attacking, because not only can Herald kick enemies into the rifts, but the rifts themselves are shown to suck in nearby enemies like a black hole, which lets Herald instantly defeat foes much stronger than him by simply warping them away. Presumably, this is how he defeated off-screen Seymour and, ironically, Warp. When Herald fights Adonis, he uses his horn to disintegrate Adonis's suit, and with Moss's help, he defeats Punk Rocket as well. As I'm throwing around all these names, keep in mind that Warp and Adonis and Punk Rocket are all villains that at some point in the series took on all 5 main Titans at once and gave that whole group together trouble. Perhaps most impressively, Herald's portals instantly trivialize the fight against the great magic dragon, Malchior. Enemies like Fang can gunk up Herald's horn, but even without the portals, Herald isn't really a pushover physically. His melee attack is strong enough to send Kataro flying. And remember, that's the big, scary martial arts master who beat Bushido earlier. Depending on the situation, it's possible that Herald could defeat just about any opponent with one well-timed and well-placed rift. However, because he needs his horn for this, and because enemies can knock the horn out of his hand or block the effect, I don't think he is the strongest Titan. But he definitely belongs in the conversation.
Something inside of me. It is changing.
Exactly how strong Red Star is depends on how strong you think radiation is as a power. And from my point of view, radiation is pretty strong. Red Star is the result of Professor Chang trying to create the perfect super soldier, and he very well might have succeeded beyond even his expectations. Red Star has super strength, which allows him to throw tanks and swing very large opponents. But more crucially, a side effect of the experimentation is that Red Star has nuclear power, enough to accidentally destroy a whole town in one blast. When we see him in the episode Snowblind, he can't last for more than like a minute of fighting, because he has to deposit his nuclear power, just so he doesn't, overload and cause another devastating incident. and at the end of the episode, we see him go into space and explode. Presumably, never to be seen again, because most people who go into space and explode don't come back. But then Red Star inexplicably returns. He's just there, and is shown to be overpowering Mammoth and Steamroller. And if the implication is that now he can harness his nuclear power with fuller control, Red Star is a super strong, flying nuclear super soldier that's nigh unstoppable. Red Star also knows his way around tech, since he built snowmobiles and various equipment in his facility, so he may have an upper hand against technology-based villains. And, anyone that's weak to radiation, which is like every human ever. That all said, it's entirely possible Harold would beat Red Star if he caught him off guard. But I suspect that this super soldier, with his training and vigilance, would not fall for it. And conversely, it might only take one hit from Red Star to knock Harold clean out of this dimension. There's only one Honorary Titan that I think could blast both of them out of here like a shooting star. And that's
Kid Flash, fastest boy alive.
Are you supposed to be a good guy or something?
One of the best.
Kid Flash is what you get if Mossy Manos didn't need to hold hands to go fast, and if they were much faster. In the span of 5 seconds, Kid Flash nabs what the High Five had robbed, drops Mammoth's pants, and gives Jinx a rose. He's so fast that at one point, it's implied he might have gone to France and back in a few seconds. If you want to be cynical, maybe he went to a French restaurant or some kind of store, but that's still really absurd, right? Because he would have had to go there, find what he wanted, leave the money for it, because he's not a bad guy, and then come back that fast. Kid Flash uses his super speed in battle to run literal circles over his opponents. When he spins around and around, he can create powerful, temporary tornadoes that sweep the villains up and deposit them wherever he so pleases. I could see that alone being the sole superpower of a wind elemental hero, like some kind of breezy version of thunder, lightning, or hotspot. But Kid Flash is capable of even more impressive things. He's constantly owning the High Five by making a group fight feel like a series of 1v1 matches that opponents just simply can't keep up with, as he dashes around, toppling one after the other, and they can't do anything to stop him from dismantling their own HQ. If that's not enough for you, Kid Flash can vibrate his molecules through solid objects, or vibrate his molecules to generate enough body heat that he burns enemies on contact. Even outside of his super speed, he's shown to have at the very least heightened strength and to be a good fighter. So when Kid Flash says that he's one of the best heroes around, he might not really be exaggerating. After all, Madame Rouge was surprised that an amateur like Jinx managed to capture him at all. Kid Flash might be a bit naive, like when he lets his guard down around Jinx and gets surrounded. But even then, it feels like the situation was never out of his control. He easily escaped the holding cell they put him in, and in the end, you could say he was justified in trying to win Jinx over in the first place. He actually succeeded. Maybe a clearer weakness is that Kid Flash can get single-minded. For example, he's so preoccupied by toying with Mammoth that at one point he gets hit by Seymour's eye projectile. He also can run into things, and he gets tired while running. So it's not like he can just run forever. But none of these weaknesses ever really throw Kid Flash off for more than a moment. I think Kid Flash is the strongest Honorary Titan because he could beat many of the other Titans and their villains before they'd even get a chance to lay a hand on him. And even if they managed to get in a hit, Kid Flash would rebound and dash back swinging. Next up on the chopping block are the Titans East, starting with the duo whose powers are most similar to Kid Flash's. As I rewatched the series and took notes, the Teen Titans Wiki was very helpful throughout the whole process. So, shout out to the Wiki. And one thing that the Wiki says is that Mossy Manos can move up to 7 times the speed of sound. With that kind of speed, surely they must be high up in this list, like Kid Flash was for the Honorary Titans, right? While the brothers Mathematical can outpace a speeding train, and they know how to dismantle robots at breakneck pace. They have a glaring weakness that sets them far back. And that's because Mas y Menos can only move at super speed when they're holding hands. All it takes to separate the two is a well-timed hit or a simple trap. And because they're not the craftiest or most tactical fighters, they can be caught off guard and quickly overwhelmed. Even in the realm of super speed, they're not only outclassed by Kid Flash, but also Johnny Rancid, who in his powered-up form can race past them on his bike. Johnny Rancid, together with Cinderblock, were also enough to defeat the duo. Now, notably, they somehow only captured Menos, which allowed Moss to continue fighting the Brotherhood and even take down the Puppet King on his own. But I still think that once an opponent realizes Mas y Menos' weakness, they won't have too hard of a time putting these pint-sized sprinters back in their place.
Think about it, Sparky. If I wasn't on your side, you'd be spare parts by now.
Bumblebee has 3 main powers. She can fly, she can shoot electricity, and she can shrink her size down to that of a bug. Additionally, she's agile, fast as a subway train, and able to adapt. As the leader of the Titans East, she's resourceful and tactical. So I do think she is quite strong, just not the strongest. When she shrinks down, Bumblebee still packs a mean punch, but her zaps are barely worse than bee stings, and they're more likely to annoy an enemy than actually take them down. When Bumblebee and Cyborg fight, it's a pretty even back and forth, and afterwards she says that she wasn't even giving it her all. Bumblebee claims that if she wasn't secretly on his side, Cyborg would have been spare parts by now. But I don't think it's that clear-cut. When Brother Blood couldn't see the results of the fight, he assumed that Cyborg had destroyed her. And remember that Brother Blood had trained both of them and should know a lot about their capabilities. When Bumblebee later fights Brother Blood, she isn't bad at keeping up with him in hand-to-hand combat. She's good at dodging his hits while also keeping him on the defensive. While at first Bumblebee claims that Brother Blood can't brainwash her because, in her own words,
"There's not a man alive who can tell me what to do."
Later on it's revealed that she definitely did get manipulated by him. So she's not actually immune to control. And then a point back in her favor is that when she was mind-controlled like the rest of the Titans East, she was the last one to be taken out by the core Titans. Which, again, shows that she can endure a long fight with them, just like she had solo against Cyborg. There are definitely situations in which I think Bumblebee would actually beat the Titan that I'm about to rank above her. But I'm putting her here because I haven't seen enough wins from Bumblebee to be fully convinced. It's also mixed. Like, she doesn't beat Cyborg, but she also keeps up with him. Then later, together, Punk, Rocket, and Angel were strong enough to send her fleeing, but she did get away unscathed. All in all, it kind of balances. I think Bumblebee has potential, but we never saw what her peak could look like.
Just try and keep up.
When Control Freak displays the stats for each of the Titans East, Bumblebee and Aqualad are tied for having the highest intelligence. But Aqualad beats her in strength. Side note, would you believe that Mas y Menos have the highest speed? What? Aqualad is a teen Aquaman. He can speak telepathically with fish and other sea creatures, which allow him to summon sharks and whales when he's in or near the ocean. Even away from a large body of water, his powers still have a lot of utility, because he can cause pipes to burst and use plumbing to his advantage. He even gets enough water from the plumbing at the Brotherhood of Evil HQ to build a huge wave that he can ride around on. Aqualad can channel water through his arms and drown his opponents that way, and he has enough super strength to pry open the giant metal doors at Titan's Tower with relative ease. So far, it's looking pretty good for our boy in the scaly blue. In the water, Aqualad is faster than Beast Boy as a swordfish, and also faster than the mind control squid. But speaking of which, when facing the aforementioned mind control squid, at one point Aqualad turns around, dives directly into it, and gets hit by it. Like, what was your plan, dude? And Aqualad's telepathy can be blocked by psionic opponents, like Brother Blood. And whenever he's separated from water and his fish friends, Aqualad is at a big disadvantage. He loses to
Trident.
twice. First in a 1v1 encounter early on in the show, and then later again when
Trident.
brings along Plasmus for a swim. And I don't know if this is ever outright confirmed in the show, but I think it's safe to assume he has a weakness to electricity, given everything. This all makes Aqualad a mixed bag. In some situations, he is a very formidable opponent and a master of his environment. In most situations, he is strong, and that's about it. And then in some other situations, he's almost powerless. So how well Aqualad does in a given fight is largely affected by the environment in which the fight takes place. But I'm going to put Aqualad here, and not any higher, because there's actually one member of the Titans East who we know can beat him, because he has already.
Speedy, I've heard you're good. Real good.
Robin, likewise. Great to finally meet you.
In the Tournament of Heroes, Speedy defeats both Wildebeest and Aqualad. He is described as having an unstoppable arsenal of arrows, and boy howdy, it really is wild how many different types of arrows Speedy has in his quiver. Some of them can be deflected, like by Wildebeest's armor, but he always has other tools in his kit just in case. His standard energy arrow can destroy a giant robot in one hit to the head, and he shoots them fast. He can shoot 3 at once, and if that's not enough, he can shoot more powerful charged arrows that explode and electrocute. He also has arrows that freeze water, arrows that punch out opponents, and arrows that cast a net. He can also act cool under pressure and draw out the right arrow without looking, even while being drowned by Aqualad. At one point, when Speedy is unable to use his bow and arrows, he uses himself as an arrow by catapulting himself into oncoming rockets, and then riding the rockets into other rockets to make all the rockets go boom. In hand-to-hand combat, Speedy is on par with Robin, and at times his bow is as strong as Robin's staff. But Robin can still beat Speedy, and he has. Robin's kick can break Speedy's bow, and without that weapon, it's usually only a matter of time, unless there's some rockets nearby to rodeo. Against the robot Cyborg army, Speedy took out many with accurate single arrow shots, but he lacks Robin's environmental awareness, and ends up backing himself into a corner and getting caught. There are plenty of villains in the Brotherhood that Speedy no doubt could handle, but he still loses his fight to Cheshire. And against the Honorary Titans, I can see him taking down Jinx and everyone below her while having a decent chance against Jericho, Pantha, Bobby, and Hotspot. But I think once you get to the really powerful ones, Speedy would get taken out by Herald's portals, Red Star's radiation, and Kid Flash's insane speed. As likely the strongest member of the Titans East, Speedy is good. And he knows he is good. But he still might not be quite as good as he thinks he is. And now, we can finally talk about the main Teen Titans. Robin, Cyborg, Beast Boy, Starfire, and Raven. It's time for the core 5. Plus 1.
Why can't things just go back to the way they were? You were so happy then.
This is where I think I enter potentially controversial territory. While it is totally possible to have hot takes on the Honorary Titans and on the Titans East, they are by no means the main characters. And no matter who you put at the bottom, every member of the core 5 has their share of devoted fans. So right off the bat, I want to say that I really like Beast Boy. Ask me most days of the week, and I'll tell you that he is my favorite character in the show. His ability to transform into the whole animal kingdom, from small microscopic organisms to giant dinosaurs, has a lot of utility, and he is a great asset to the team. While I am putting Beast Boy last on this list, Beast Boy is strong, and in some situations, could still beat some of the Titans ranked above him. With these core Titans, who appear in so many fights throughout the 5 seasons, there's going to be some inconsistencies and very situational moments. For example, in the episode Switched, T-Rex Beast Boy can break through Raven's magic barrier, But I don't think that necessarily means that Beast Boy in every instance can just break through Raven's magic. Often, Beast Boy's most powerful animal form is that of a giant beast, like the aforementioned T-Rex or rhinoceros or an elephant. But he also uses other animals for flight or to accomplish specific tasks, like when he becomes an anteater in the episode Masks so he can grab things at a long distance with his tongue, or when he turns into a skunk to spray wildebeest in their fight. This all requires quick thinking from Beast Boy. He is a changeling that must be able to adapt at a moment's notice. He can also turn into extinct animals, like a mammoth in the episode Titan Rising, as well as alien creatures from other worlds, like in Betrothed. Partway through the series, Beast Boy and the villain Adonis are exposed to some chemicals that let them transform into powerful beasts. When Beast Adonis attacks Raven, Beast Boy intervenes in his own beast form. And I think this is potentially very big. Raven says, and likely believes, that Beast Boy saved her life, because Beast Adonis could have killed her. And since Beast Boy and Adonis are both equal in power when they're transformed and fighting each other, it is reasonable to argue that Beast Boy, in his beast form, also could have defeated Raven one-on-one. But there are a couple factors to consider. One, Raven was attacked unexpectedly. Her guard was down. She was not prepared for the fight with Adonis. And second, it's unclear if Beast Boy and Adonis's beast forms were still being temporarily strengthened by residual chemical reactions. Sure, in this episode, Beast Boy and Adonis, in this form, could handle the Titans 1v4, but I don't know if he is still that strong later, when he becomes this creature again in the episode The End Part 1. Maybe Beast Boy, if he later again became the Beast and can do it anytime he wants now, maybe he could take down Raven in a straightforward solo fight. But I don't think that's proven here. As one of the show's main comic relief characters, it's not uncommon for Beast Boy to get hit by an enemy's attack for slapstick value, or so we get to see him reeling with a funny reaction. He's especially susceptible to hypnosis, like Mad Mod's spirals. In the episode Employee of the Month, Beast Boy is shown to be a slower flyer than Raven and Starfire, and he also tires out faster than them. He can be a bit clumsy sometimes, like when in Nevermore he inexplicably runs straight into Cyborg instead of, just going around him. But Beast Boy's biggest weakness might be that, compared to every other core Titan, he is the most likely to rush into a situation without a strong plan. Beast Boy loses to Wildebeest because he turns into a T-Rex and crashes through the cage floor, which makes him the only core Titan of the three in the tournament to lose in round 1. Still, at other times, Beast Boy can outsmart opponents and come up with clever ideas. He's the one who realized that there could be more than one Trident. In the episode How Long Is Forever, we see what the Titans could possibly turn into if they lost Starfire and did not stay together. An older, out-of-shape, and balding Beast Boy says that after the Titans broke up, he tried the solo hero thing for a while, but he got beat up so bad that he quit. And the implication is that Beast Boy could not make it as a solo hero, whereas there's at least one other future Titan in the same episode that we know could. More on him later. In terms of matchups, Beast Boy can beat Cardiac on his own, and he can keep up with Slade in situations where notably Slade wasn't really focused on killing him. Beast Boy is strong and sometimes can do things that no other hero can. But while he is a quick thinker in isolated moments, and he is tough to keep down, I still think his general lack of long-term battle strategy and the sheer power of his teammates would give them the edge over him in most fight scenarios.
Well, let's get it started!
Cyborg is often portrayed as the team's muscle. He can easily pick up cars and throw them large distances. In Divide and Conquer, Cyborg defeats Cinderblock on his own off-screen, and while at first in Final Exam he struggles to hold back Mammoth, by the end of the series I think it's clear that Cyborg is the stronger fighter. Cyborg is pretty evenly matched against Atlas, and it's in this fight that Cyborg learns he can actually push past his machine limits because of his human side. Thanks to his machine body, Cyborg has several gadgets and features at his disposal, like the shoulder flashlight that lets him see in dark places, and of course the powerful arm cannon he uses for most of his ranged attacks. Because Cyborg is part machine, opponents with knowledge of tech like Gizmo can mess with him or start taking him apart. But of course this goes both ways, because Cyborg also knows how to dismantle opponents' technology, and he has some really advanced knowledge about engineering. Cyborg defeats Gizmo in the Tournament of Heroes because of his quick reaction time and his trusty boot laser. Cyborg can also be short-circuited, affected extra by electricity, get viruses, and run out of battery. Sometimes these altered states make him stronger, like with the Mach 7 upgrade, but none of these states are sustainable. While in some ways his machine body is more durable than a body of flesh and bone, shrapnel can get caught in his machinery, and Cyborg's evil duplicate says that he has specifically 35 weak spots. Every core Titan has some kind of experience outside the team that makes them unique and useful. Robin has his history with Batman, fighting crime in the streets of Gotham. Beast Boy served with the Doom Patrol all around the world. Raven studies ancient history and magic tomes. Starfire hails from the warrior culture of Tamaran. But Cyborg got his own experience during the run of the show by training undercover at the Hive Academy. While masquerading as Stone, he became the MVP at the training exercises and excelled past his Hive 5 classmates. So impressed was Brother Blood that the headmaster challenged Cyborg to lift the maximum weight at their facility, and Cyborg did. And depending on who you ask, Cyborg also might have been beating Bumblebee in their fight at the Academy, but it was admittedly a close match, and there's some room for debate. However, there's no debating that Cyborg certainly defeated Brother Blood at the end of Season 3, even if it was a very bizarre victory that seems extraordinarily circumstantial. Brother Blood was able to slice Cyborg apart. But then, suddenly, Cyborg realized that it's not his machine aspects that could resist Brother Blood, but his spirit. And somehow, upon realizing this, he was able to reform his body by taking pieces from the mecha cyborgs nearby. And now, reformed, he could suddenly dodge all of Brother Blood's attacks, the ones that previously, got him all sliced up to bits. And later he claimed that somehow he was even able to hack into Brother Blood's brain. If his spirit is able to regenerate under this kind of situation, does that mean he could regenerate around other machines? Does it mean that he has this ability to dodge things more when he taps into his human spirit? I just don't understand what it is enough to even count it. To me, this win feels very scripted and disconnected from anything that Cyborg does in the other episodes. So I'm going to discount it from the ranking. Look, I might not be in the Headmaster's honor roll, but I still think this was a bit of a fluke and a cheap trick. There really aren't many moments in the series where characters' power levels are directly compared to one another, but in the episode Overdrive, we actually do get to see both Cyborg and Starfire in the weight room at the same time. And while Cyborg struggles to lift his weights, Starfire is shown to lift that exact same amount of weight with one hand. So while Cyborg may be presented as the muscle in the group, this is a huge piece of evidence that suggests Starfire is in fact physically stronger. She can lift more and pack a bigger punch. Mind you, in the episode Switched, while under mind control, Cyborg may have been able to restrain Raven and Starfire, but I think it's safe to say that they were probably holding back to avoid hurting their friend. But then, other times, even base form Cyborg is shown to do something insane. Like in The End Part 1, he lifts a whole freaking building. One-off moments like that make all of this ranking fun, but also challenging. Because it's like, how much should I read into that? Is that just a one-off gag? Or is that something he can just do now? In any case, if Beast Boy and Cyborg faced off and held nothing back, I think it would be a close fight, but Cyborg would likely take the win. Between Cyborg's cannons and his superior strength, BB would be in over his head and ultimately eat dirt.
I have to meditate every day to keep my powers under control. I'm supposed to believe that you can just suddenly control yours?
Okay, this next placement requires a wee bit of clarification. Raven's powers are heightened by her emotions. If she loses control, she runs the risk of doing something unthinkable, and she might not be able to stop. So she meditates every day to keep that power at bay. Thus, for most of the series, Raven is holding back, and it's this more common version of Raven, the one practicing self-control, that I'm ranking right now. She'll throw whatever she has around as a projectile, whether it's a hot dog stand or some crates, and it's often not all that effective. She can levitate heavy objects like a car for an extended period of time, yet she's rarely the Titan who turns a fight around or gets the final blow on an enemy. She can rapid-fire kick at opponents who get in her face, but she's likely the weakest close-range fighter in the group. And although Raven can fly, and that's very cool, it is quite possible that she's slower than Starfire, or it takes more of her energy, because we sometimes see her riding instead in the T-car. Regardless, Raven was always shown, from the start, to be a level-headed strategist with smart tactics. She's the one who comes up with the idea of starving the giant fire monster of fuel by removing the trees. She deduces Slade's location in Apprentice Part 1, and in Switched, she's stealthier and more cautious than Starfire. While it isn't shown very often, Raven does have the power to partially heal wounds. For others, but I can presume also for herself if there ever was a need. Her magic can cut through tanks and create shields that suppress attacks from enemies like Overload. Sometimes, Raven will do something unexpected with her powers, like create a giant raven that can grab enemies with its claws. And through her studies of tomes, she can cast powerful magic, like the spell that brought Cyborg back from 5,000 years ago. Raven has more in her repertoire as we get into Season 4, but the closer Trigon's return gets, the less clear it becomes how much of what Raven is doing is stuff that she can normally do versus stuff that she can only do because of Trigon's influence or her increasing emotional instability. So I will save all of that fun stuff for later, because we certainly have not seen the last of Raven.
Who is Slade? 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 Who is Slade?
While Robin doesn't have magic or alien powers or cybernetic augmentations, he is still one of the strongest heroes in the show. He is the leader of the Teen Titans and probably the best tactician in the group. And Robin is, as you might expect, incredibly agile and acrobatic. An early example is in the episode Sisters, when Beast Boy tries to jump and misses a pod flying by, whereas Robin latches onto it first try. He can also dodge Gorilla Beast Boy and trap him in surrounding obstacles, fight hand-to-hand while free-falling, and catch one of Speedy's arrows mid-air. In his arsenal, Robin has discs he can throw for various effects, to freeze opponents, to blind them, to spread smoke, or to gunk something up with goo. His birdarangs are sharp enough to cut through Cardiac's exterior and Mala's cannon, and his bow staff is super strong, can extend to ridiculous lengths, and can even turn into a nifty sword. Robin's flame-resistant cape is made out of titanium, and when he's not leaping from building to building, one of Robin's main methods of transportation is his R-Cycle, which is one of the fastest vehicles in the series. And in the episode Employee of the Month, he's shown to have glider tech that lets him fly with jet boots, even if, for some reason 2 episodes later in The Prophecy, Cyborg says that Robin can't fly. When he was Red X, Robin could fight his friends 1v4, but in all fairness, he knew their weaknesses, so it might not necessarily be that he's much stronger than all of them in all circumstances. Though in How Long Is Forever, Robin seems to be the only Titan who could go solo. Beast Boy retired after getting his butt kicked too many times, but Nightwing appears to be capable as a crime fighter. Robin can beat Cinderblock, Hotspot, and Speedy. He can hold his own against the Master of Games, even when that guy has the powers of other heroes. Robin is tenacious and unflinching. Show him 200 enemies, way too many to fight, and he'll say, fight anyway. And in the episode The Quest, Robin learns from the Master and the different trials and tribulations along the road of the mountain. One of Robin's weaknesses is that sometimes he just will not accept failure. This lets opponents like Johnny Rancid get in his head and goad him into an accident. Like Slade, Robin hates to lose. And speaking of which, while sometimes Robin can defeat Slade, usually Slade is the stronger fighter. and Robin also loses 1v1 against Madame Rouge. But most other villains fall before Robin. He's a hero who keeps adapting, and sometimes with mad fervor, meticulously studies his opponents to maintain that upper hand. Sometimes it feels like there's nothing that can stop him. But I suspect that maybe one of his closest friends actually could.
I suggest a large pizza with pickles, bananas, and mint frosting.
Starfire is often portrayed as friendly and upbeat, joyful and a bit silly. But when the gloves come off, I think Starfire is actually the strongest Titan in the core 5. Her main method of attack is to hail on enemies a volley of powerful starbolts. But when those don't do the trick, she can also use her Tamaranian powers in other ways. For example, Starfire can melt metal and use it to seal doors. Although Blackfire says that she was always the better fighter, Starfire is able to easily dodge her sister's attacks. And in their second confrontation, even when Blackfire has the Jewel of Charta, Starfire holds her own and wins handedly in the end. Like I said before, there's evidence that physically she's the strongest core Titan. In the episode Betrothed, Starfire can lift the giant goblets with ease while her friends struggle, including Cyborg. When Val-Yor sends Starfire on what could potentially be suicide missions, his stated reason is that her people can withstand the hostile conditions of space. And throughout that episode, Trock, she's shown to be far more capable of a fighter than Val-Yor would have expected. And I'd wager she's stronger than him, too. And when she takes a hit from a wrecking ball, afterwards, she's just fine. Even radiation can't harm her. While sometimes Starfire appears clueless or unaware, she actually has some staggering brain power. Like in the episode Sisters, she casually mentions that she's memorized all 6,000 verses of the Poem of Gratitude. Let's not forget that she's also the one who figured out that Robin was Red X. Starfire's powers are controlled by unbridled joy, but unlike with Raven, emotional imbalances don't seem to affect Starfire very often. She's still able to fly and keep fighting, even when we see her feeling down or alone in the universe. Tamaranians are very powerful warriors, and she's one of the strongest among them. To the rest of the team, Johnny Rancid's pet Rex is a dangerous threat, but Starfire says that back on her planet, Rex would only be considered a pet that's playful. It's no wonder that Robin called Starfire the strongest girl ever. When they first met, and they had that fight, I think if it kept going much longer, she would have won.
I'm ready to take you guys up on your offer. I want to be a Teen Titan.
Like I said earlier with Jinx, I'm going to count characters in this ranking if they were ever Titans, regardless if at other times they might have actually played a more villainous role. Enter Terra. When we first meet her, she can already move very large stone pillars and was smart enough to lure her giant scorpion pursuer into a trap. Terra can ride giant rocks and speed through the air at breakneck pace, maybe even faster than Starfire in flight. On her first attempt, Terra beats Cyborg's course record at the training grounds, and she's evenly matched with Raven when they fight for the possession of a giant slab of rock. But we also find out that Terra does not have full control over her powers. In the past, it's caused some issues. Earthquakes, avalanches, mudslides. Slade says that she's more dangerous than anything he's ever seen. And that's, coming from Slade. For a long time, I underestimated Terra, because I figured she was limited by only being able to manipulate rocks, like how Aqualad can only go splish-splash and lightning can only make sparks fly. But Terra's powers of devastation are very real and have many applications. When Slade turns her to his side, she already knows the Titans' weaknesses, just like Robin had when he turned against the Titans. So you could say that when she beats them up, she was helped by that advantage. Also, Slade is able to work through her and help her discover abilities that she wasn't aware of before. But even then, everything she does, even if Slade helps her, is something that she's capable of. And at the rate that Terra was growing, it's quite possible that she would have become even more powerful had she remained with the Titans through seasons 3, 4, and 5. While we didn't get to see the Tournament of Heroines play out, I think Terra could have won, provided Wonder Girl didn't show up and steal the whole show. One of the biggest weaknesses Terra has is that she falters during low visibility, like in smoke or fog. But aside from that, Terra had few weaknesses, outside of trouble controlling her powers, and that could have been resolved with more time and practice. As an opponent to the Titans, under Slade's tutelage and control, Terra totals the T-Car with a giant rock and causes shockwaves by striking the ground. She makes golems out of earth and concrete and holds her own against all 5 Titans at once. She has the stamina to do multiple tough fights and take out the Titans in quick succession. Had she wanted to, Terra could have killed them. Most notably, she had the chance to kill both Raven and Robin, but chose not to. While her earth powers are her main means of attack, she also held her own against Robin in hand-to-hand combat. When Raven throws a freaking bus at her, she's able to avoid harm by burrowing beneath the ground. And she lifts skyscraper-sized columns from the earth like it's nothing. Terra can control not only rocks, but also muddy water and concrete. In the future, it's not hard to imagine she could have controlled sand, maybe glass. In her final sacrifice, Terra stirs up the magma below the ground and triggers a volcanic eruption, which she is able to contain and stop at the cost of her own life. Maybe if she had more time, Terra could have freely controlled molten rock whenever she wanted. For you Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, I think Terra would be considered one of the strongest earthbenders of all time, up there with Toph, maybe even stronger than Toph. I admit I'm throwing around a lot of what-ifs, but the show itself backs up that Terra, even without full control of her powers, in the state she was in, was remarkably strong. It's why Slade wanted to control her in the first place, because even he feared what she could do. The most fascinating battle to scrutinize in the whole series, for me at least, is the fight between Terra and Raven in Aftershock Part 1. Because depending on how you interpret the fight, it may answer whether Terra is the strongest Teen Titan or the second strongest. Throughout the fight, Terra is shown to have the advantage. She can make mud bubbles explode and turn it from liquid to solid rock for sturdy shields, grabbing hands, and giant fists. Whatever she needed to hammer the point home. Terra purposefully makes Raven angry, to such an extent that the 4 eyes of Trigon appear on Raven's face. But even then, Terra is still able to drag Raven down into the mud and defeat her. We see the Trigon eyes dissipate before the scene cuts, which means Raven had reverted, and you could plausibly interpret that Raven, even now, was still holding back and practicing self-control, ultimately still sublimating her emotions even at the risk of death. Despite all of her talk of distrusting Terra, of seeing Terra now as just another villain to take down, Raven ultimately did consider her a friend and probably related a lot to her. Raven trusted her, and killing Terra would do irreparable damage to Beast Boy and the Titans as a team. If Raven was really giving 100% in this fight, then Terra beating her means that she is clearly stronger than Raven. End of story. But I don't think Raven considered killing Terra an option. I don't think this was actually Raven at her strongest. In part because I think we saw that in Season 4. And those powers go beyond what even Terra was capable of.
You are not welcome here. Azarath Metreon Xantha!
In the episode Fear Itself, Raven watches a scary movie with her friends, and it gives her nightmares. But she denies her emotions and says she's not afraid, which makes the problem worse and literally brings the movie monster to life. This creature, which she generated unconsciously, might actually be unstoppable. And the fact that Raven could summon this without even trying says something about the extent of her powers whenever her raw emotions are unleashed. Raven says that she has to meditate every day to control her powers, but her birthday and the prophecy of Trigon send her emotions spiraling. She is able to stop time around her throughout the city, and only Slade, marked by Trigon's power, and the people she chooses to free, like Robin, can move in this suspended time. Raven can pull Slade out of portals, fling him like a ragdoll against walls, and cast magic more explosive than usual. She defeats Plasmus almost immediately, and can knock the other 4 Titans unconscious. The line between where Raven's powers end and Trigon's begins is very blurry. She's shown commanding his fire minions, but is that really her? Or is that actually Trigon acting through his portal? And further complicating this is her white-cloaked persona, who previously appeared as Raven's last defense against the idea of Trigon in her head, then in an alternate future where she had secluded herself entirely from the world. And now, this white-cloaked Raven is the only force capable of sending Trigon back to whence he came. In the scene where Raven defeats Trigon, I think she's still being powered up by an overflow of emotions. But this time it's not fear. Instead, it's righteous indignation against the monster claiming to be her father. She's also motivated by the hope and trust from Robin that's shared between her found family of friends. The only hero capable of defeating both Terra and Kid Flash is Raven, but only when she taps into all of her powers and gives it 100%. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If you want more Teen Titans content and analysis, you're in luck, because not only did I drop a 2-hour full series retrospective a few months back, but I've also got more Teen Titans videos on the way quite soon. And the best way for you to keep in the loop with these upcoming videos is to subscribe. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Teen Titans, you can help me and support the video by giving a like or leaving a comment saying who you think is the strongest Teen Titan. Next time, I'll be addressing the second question I had while rewatching the show: who is the strongest Teen Titans villain? Until then, ciao.